right. I would like to thank you all for coming to today's meeting. It is a little bit unprecedented, but we are here to discuss one thing in particular, and that would be the possible adoption of ultracite weaponry for the Brotherhood of Steel. This is a contentious topic among all of us, but I hope we can remain civil and try to remember that we are thinking for what's best, not just for us or the Brotherhood, but for the future of Appalachia and the next generation of those who will come after us. Who would like to open the discussions?
Well, I would.
By all means, go for it.
I mean, I don't really know what there is to discuss. Clearly, it's our best weapon and our best line of defense against the Scorched. There's such a problem that, man, I don't even know what I would weigh against a Scorched, a group of Scorched, or muties, honestly. Why aren't we using Ultracite already?
Can you describe the increased efficacy of using Ultracite in weaponry over standard weaponry?
Well, isn't there research proving that depleted Ultracite and Ultracite is more effective against the Scorched?
What research? Where?
Let me sift through my Pip-Boy notes.
Well, to go on that kind of topic, I was wondering, we do know that Taggarty Thunder's group was looking into using Ultracite, so maybe they were onto something.
What? With what?
With using the Ultracite.
How?
So we know about the Ultracite power armor.
What do we know about it? We have some plans. What else?
They had some plans to use it against the Scorch.
The armor?
Yeah, and whatever else they made with it.
Couldn't even get it to work, man.
So is there ways that we can try to get it to work?
My question is, do we even want to? Like, what is the increased benefit here?
Well, that seems to be an unknown topic. It's required for some sort of research development of weaponry.
It's unknown, right?
Right.
Well, I don't see how we're going to figure out if it works or not if we don't start testing it on the Scorched. And we need ultracite weapons to do that, so.
There's a hopeful that's making sense.
I mean, wouldn't we do that with any other substance that we believe that would be effective against the Scorch?
Yeah, I believe we should do it with every substance we believe might be.
I mean, jumping off that, as a part of our 3 mission objectives, one of them that does specifically state that we are to be focusing on this before all others, which is Operation Hope for Future. We need to be able to exploit any and all weakness, whether we know it already or not.
That is a misunderstanding.
I agree with Carlson on that.
We're supposed to be exploiting weaknesses in their DNA.
Not necessarily in other things.
But if we... Good.
I don't, like Scribe Carlson was saying, I don't know if we can even classify ultracite as a weakness until we actually experiment with it.
That's true. And I'm sorry.
After you.
I'm not suggesting like that we just take this and run with it, but we can't say yes or no, and we definitely can't say no until we've tested it to figure out whether or not it would be a viable option.
What I wanted to say was, do the risks outweigh the benefits? Like, we don't know how bad things can really get if things go wrong while we're testing.
I disagree. We do know, because Appalachia has rivers of ultracite running underneath it, and I'd say that's a result of things going pretty damn bad.
True.
Well, to piggyback off that was because they were trying to mass produce it in large quantities. And I'm not saying that we should follow what these other people did, which, ruined the landscape and Appalachia itself in that far corner of the Cranberry Bog. But my suggestion would be maybe do a small research team who looks into developing it for weaponry, and after they produce successful results where it can be used safely against the Scorch, then we start mass producing it for our members within the group. Not on like a huge scale like they were doing, but like just for our members.
We need to not only consider the short-term effects of manufacturing ultracite weapons, but the long-term implications, what that might mean for the Brotherhood and the other groups in Appalachia looking at us making these weapons.
Yeah, I'm not even
I
sure
get
this
what
should be
you're
let out of the bottle, man. Like once people see that we have something that's more effective than what they have, they're going to want it as well. And we all know, I hope, that Ultracite has its mass-produced roots in nuclear weaponry, which
We vowed never to detonate nukes ourselves, even if things got out of control for us.
Well, using the ultracite as a means to an end to defeat the Scorch doesn't. That's not us detonating nukes. That's trying to do our primary objective, which is to get rid of the Scorched. Like, I don't really see the problem here. Like, yes, it was horrible the way it was created, but we're not, like, trying to make more of it. It's just, why not use what we already have if it's beneficial towards the cause? It's not. That doesn't equal us condoning what they did to get it.
then why not make any?
Temporary.
Why not use
Sorry,
the
go ahead.
nuclear stockpiles that already exist, as long as we don't make any more of it?
Because
I
of
think
the. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I get their perspective. What they're saying, from what I'm getting here, is if we were to produce results with, let's say, ultracite weaponry, we would need more ultracite to make more of that weaponry. And if we started being successful with ultracite weaponry, then other groups would probably do the same. And then we're back to square one, like before the bombs fell. It's where they're mining it on a larger scale, not just us.
Well, you're
Yeah,
also thinking in the time that, let's say there's the other timeline in which we successfully create the weaponry and deplete the Scorch to absolute zero. We wouldn't need Ultracite anymore.
I don't know. Like now that I'm hearing it from both sides, I'm kind of seeing this, damn if we do, damn if we don't. Because if we keep on mining this ultracite, let's say we deplete all the veins that we have available to us right now, and we're still fighting the Scorch. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna start blowing up nukes underground to create more ultracite?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no.
Well, in case and effect, creates more Scorch, right? So it's almost like ultracite and the Scorch are one and the same.
So, by that logic, we should use up the Ultracite in our weaponry to fight them, and once they're gone, dispose of them.
Yeah, but here's the
Yeah,
issue,
and-
right? There's a bunch of other people out there too, and they're very, very well aware of what this stuff does and the kind of power that it wields. So, we run out of ultracite, they're going to be looking for ways to make more of it.
Well, that just lies in as sorry guys, bit too many been outside too often. That just loops back to our job as a brotherhood, doesn't it? Protecting technology and anything dangerous from humanity.
Right. So why should we show them that they even exist?
It's not the fact
Do
that
they
we're
already
showing
know?
them. Most people already know that exists.
Do they?
They see it flying around all the time. They see it invading their towns and their settlements. They may not know what it is, but they see it
Well,
everywhere.
I mean,
That doesn't.
Sorry,
he-
Louise.
I was just gonna say, you mean specifically weapons, right?
Yes.
So, who's to say they have to find out? Like, the Brotherhood is a pretty put together group. I feel like we could probably hide what we're doing from a bunch of raiders and other people.
Could you say the same thing about the Hellstorm missile launchers?
Well,
Those
I
were a
wasn't there
different
for that,
case.
but from what I
Weren't they
hear,
actively proliferated?
that was because one of our own was going against the general protocol of what we do. If I feel like now well, that's not resolved, is it, completely?
Not yet.
I
Well,
think
shit.
we should hear the perspective of one of our other scribes. Temple reaches into his pocket, searching, and pulls out a holotape, and he puts it into his Pip-Boy. I had this conversation a while ago with one of our late scribes, so hopefully this could help put things in perspective for all of us. Even though she is gone, I still think we should try to consider her stance on things when it comes to Ultracite.
Hey, Constance.
Simple. How you doing, man? What brings you to Delta?
I'm alright. But, guess I'll be frank with you. What do you know about Ultracite?
A lot, but also not enough. The research is ongoing and never ending. But, why? Why do you ask?
Well, I've been thinking. The Scorched. They are becoming more and more of a threat. We need a way to consistently push them back.
Uh-huh.
Resources are always scarce, but one specifically is consistent. Ultracite. We can find it at any fissure site, it seems.
Where are you going with this, Temple?
Well, I'm pretty proficient when it comes to weapon maintenance. If you gave me some of those samples, I think we might be able to use Ultracite and adapt it to our weapons. I could even get you a prototype in your hands in just a few days.
That's not happening, Jonathan.
Why not?
Because we aren't using Ultracite in our weapons. End of story.
Well, that's pretty fucking narrow-minded, don't you think?
Even you know how Ultracite was manufactured. By purposely detonating nuclear bombs. We swore that we wouldn't use the weapons that led to our destruction. If we did, our order would be nothing more than a farce, repeating history of the people who doomed us in the first place. Sooner or later, we'd end up destroying ourselves, like them, because we outpaced our own restraint.
Detonating nukes and using minerals to manufacture weapons are two entirely different things, Constance.
In this case, it really isn't.
It really is, though.
That's where you are wrong.
Then enlighten me. Explain to me why we risk facing chapter extinction over not adapting to the times that are presented to us.
Ultracite is a byproduct of what destroyed the old world, nukes. Those that created the nukes told themselves that they needed them to protect from those who had weapons of their own. They needed the ultimate deterrent, something that would vastly outperform any weapon your typical soldier would carry. Something that's final, can't be topped. So what happened? Other groups learned how to create these nuclear weapons because they told themselves that they needed a deterrent against those who already had nukes. You see where I'm going with this, Temple? It became a war in of itself. Not by firing a bullet or launching a typical rocket, but by manufacturing weapons at a lightning pace, trying to scare the opposing side into submission. Clearly, that didn't work, because eventually someone had enough and launched their weapon, fully aware of the consequences. The opposition knew it was doomed, so they ended up firing their weapons as well, completely and utterly destroying themselves and failing the ones they swore to protect. Can't you see that the same could happen with Ultracite? Yes, it provides a possible solution to suppressing the Scorched quicker. What happens after that? We stop using it? We can make all the vows we want as a Brotherhood, but what happens when some degenerate group in Appalachia manages to get the schematics for an Ultracite weapon? What then? After knowing that the Brotherhood made them, they'd probably want to arm themselves too. And what if a group like Foundation got wind of this? They would want to protect themselves against the other people building up their arsenals. So, they would rush themselves into developing some sort of Ultracite deterrent as well. An Ultracite rifle turns into Ultracite artillery, eventually turning into an Ultracite weapon that takes us out for good.
Temple pauses the holotape. I hope that does enough for you to consider what we're dealing with.
Yeah, so we're talking more about the ethical morality behind using Ultracite.
It's an important discussion where I personally am torn at. We need to consider that.
As a weapon. That's the Ultracite as a weapon. That's the big thing here.
So let me turn the tables here. What if we find like a cure with the Ultracite veins? What are we gonna do then?
What do you mean?
Like, let's say we take these samples from the fissure sites, we mess around with the Ultracite, we find a way to use it against the Scorch, not in a weaponry kind of setting, but in a more of a like medical or science method, like spraying a gas or something like that.
That's specifically what Operation Hope for Future is addressing. We're trying to decipher the DNA.
Yeah, deciphering the DNA is completely different from a magic medicinal cure coming from Ultracite, which I have to say is extremely unlikely to happen.
Well, we're also talking about magic through weapons because we don't know the results.
Well, we don't even know if it's effective. All that some of us are trying to say here is that we never are going to, like, okay, so there's a clear connection between Ultracite and the Scorched. It's literally growing out of them. So all we're proposing here is that we see if there's a connection, like, between, if that connection can be used as a weakness by using Ultracite weapons. But the other thing is we'd have to figure out how to even, I guess it's a topic for another time, but implement the Ultracite into the weapon, so to say. But that's getting ahead of the point.
Yeah, separate from weapons, like put weapons out of your mind. I'm talking on a medical side of the debate.
Isn't this debate about weapons, though?
We're talking about
Right.
using weapons.
Yeah.
But for a minute here, put away the whole weapon. Think about medical. And like we had to gather up all this ultracite to make this medical cure or whatever. I mean, isn't that the same of gathering ultracite as we would for weapons?
It depends on if you got any ideas. Let's hear them.
I don't have any ideas, but if you're talking about the moral, ethical decision to use or not to use ultracite weaponry because you're afraid that it will be massed harvest or mined, I mean, wouldn't that be the same if we were to find some sort of cure or medical properties within the ultracite to use? I mean, we would end up harvesting and mining again.
Depends.
If you're using ultracite as a medicine to combat the scorched, isn't that just bio warfare as opposed to conventional warfare?
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Either way,
be on the other side of the debate here. You're against using ultracite weaponry, but you're for using ultracite for some sort of like cure, right?
Well, the applications of it being used are entirely different at that moment.
But it can still be considered a weapon.
With the moral debate presented by Scribe Carlson and Scribe Constance in that holotape, it seems like it doesn't really matter what we're using it for because the place it came from is the same, just to like clarify that. So
Something
I don't
else
see...
to consider here too.
What's that?
Yeah, what's that?
So we know from information that we've retrieved from AMS that depleted ultracite explodes when it comes into contact with ultracite. If we employ something like this in our own weaponry, we're actually opening ourselves up to the possibility of our own equipment turning against us.
Well, that's not okay.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's only if Ultracite actually comes in direct contact with it, right?
I mean, we kind of come into contact with it all the time if you think about it. I mean, look at the Scorch Beasts. They've obviously got ultracite worked into their biology, and do we even know the chemical composition of what they spray at us?
I mean, with that same argument, though, there are fail-safes in technology like fusion cores. We are taking literal fusion cores into battle, which explode if not handled correctly. In the backs of the...
Or ammo magazines.
The point I'm getting at here is that there are built-in fail-safes to these to stop the worst possible reaction from happening. Now, I'm not arguing one way or the other on this one. Actually, I've been sitting here trying to reconsider my perspective on this ultracite topic. I don't know anymore if we should use it as a weapon. I came into this argument with it, absolutely. But now I'm just trying to make sure, like, trying to think, if we develop weapons from it, we can find extra things. Maybe we can even find a way that we can neutralize it. Like, you can get rid of radiation, like you can get rid of acid in the water through adding extra chemicals to it. Maybe we can find a way to neutralize ultracite.
Even just with the point that Scribe Carlson made about the weapons turning against us, I don't even think... I'm starting to think that the risk of using them, just like of bodily harm to us, might not even be worth the advantage if it's not too great. Like, even if there was an advantage, I don't. I think it's got to. It can't be super big, or else we probably would have. I don't know, noticed it in some other form, like in nature at
I
least.
mean,
If
how will we have
Scorched had
noticed
such
it
an
if no one's
adverse
ever done it?
if Scorched had such an adverse reaction to Ultracite, they're around it all the time. It's stuck into them. Wouldn't they be being affected by it? Or they might be being affected by it and we just can't tell. They do seem to be in pain a lot of the time.
I would think that, people in the past making any sort of research or development into anything that's like technologically advanced or minerally advanced, had their risk. I mean, there's so many examples in history, like explosives, guns, launchers, automobiles, robots. They all had their risks, right? Like building a robot. You don't know if that robot's going to turn against you or other people or develop its own consciousness where it thinks it needs to go kill a human race, right? We've seen that in Appalachia. And the fusion cores is a good example too. I mean, it was a pure energy of fusion back in the past, but they were able to research, develop it, and harness it. Like maybe we could be able to harness ultracite if we did more research on it, but we don't know. We don't know all the risks because there's not enough information about it.
That's exactly what we shouldn't be doing. We should only proceed when we know it's going to benefit mankind in a safe manner. We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past.
So let's not.
How
We're
can we
talking
make...
as if we already have stockpiles of ultracite weapons made. We have nothing. Why don't we start with something?
We can't make progress without making a few mistakes along the way.
Yeah, but those mistakes might turn out to be deadly.
So,
I would highly suggest that we keep this secret if we do any sort of research into ultracite. And I think research and looking more into ultracite should continue so that we can have a better understanding about it. And then if we find anything that we can use for a possible weapon, then maybe we should reapproach this and see what sort of safety procedures we can do or can't do and what the risk might be.
Yeah, I definitely don't think we
agree.
should... I suppose considering the dangers, we shouldn't go into it blindly. Like, this shouldn't start until we have concrete evidence that it will affect the Scorched in a big enough way where it's actually worth it.
all right.
So
here's what I propose. Austin points over to Temple. I propose that Mr. Abraxo over there makes a singular ultracite weapon of his choosing, and we do isolated field testing.
First of all, you can call me Scribe. Initiate. Second of all,
Semantics.
we can try making a weapon and seeing if it works. There's no harm in doing a single weapon, and if we retract our choice, we can destroy it immediately, but I don't know, I just feel like we need to look at every possible outcome when it comes to manufacturing these weapons. We can't overlook any detail.
That's why it's going to you.
Well, I wouldn't say just look into weapons research, also look into other attributes that the ultracite can be used for.
yeah, for sure. I mean, we have been researching it, but
I mean, from our scrolls knowledge, we know that it could be used as a fuel source and maybe something else. But as far as weapons are concerned, the only lead that we really have is maybe the fire breathers, according to our scrolls.
Well, this is exactly what I'm concerned about, We can use it as an ammunition. We can use it as a weapon. We can use it as a fuel source. This is starting to sound like a commodity. A commodity that people would be willing to fight for, and maybe even start wars over. And that's not something we should be pioneering.
I'd like to point out, too, that the only reason that we're even thinking about this at all is because there was another group in Appalachia that figured this out. And they're dead. So I don't think it helped them very much either.
Well, I'm just
Well, here's
saying,
my thing.
our old Brotherhood of Steel is also dead, and they didn't use that. So who's to say, really, if it worked or not? Everyone ended up dying to the Scorch eventually.
I haven't seen anybody be able to use ultracite weaponry on a in a
Well,
infantry
just
combat setting.
I don't mean to theorize here, but what do you all think if the previous Brotherhood that was here before us actually managed to have working prototypes of Ultracite weapons and armor? Do you think they would have be able to last longer out here, or no?
Probably.
Yeah,
I mean, who's to
and
say?
also the fact that they were even trying to make the armor shows that they thought it was ethical, or else they
I
probably would
mean,
have made it. Or
I
I
would
guess they
like to
could.
also point out Lost Hills, all the way from California. The scribes over there approved of that armor.
Right, but it could have just been an energy source for the armor. We're not entirely sure of the
Well,
usage of
either
it.
way, there's ultracite in
Well,
it, so
yeah.
they must have approved the use of it.
Yeah, same thing with Valdez. She used the ultracite battery.
So
So,
then the ethical question is they've decided it's okay to use. It
As
doesn't
an-
matter what you're using it for.
As an energy
Right.
source, no, it does matter what you're using it for.
well, an energy source for a weapon of war. I don't know about you, but a suit of power armor doesn't sound necessarily domesticated.
Mm-hmm.
There's a world of difference between a defensive piece of material and something that you're using to actually cause damage.
It's used in defense to cause damage with something else.
Something else.
That in itself creates a deterrent, and that would probably urge other people to manufacture other weapons to combat that.
Yeah, but no other people are the Brotherhood of Steel. I mean, hell, it took two groups, one here in this state and one in another, in order to actually get the damn things maybe working. Hell, we don't even know.
It didn't work. They didn't get it to work. Who knows how much research it's going to take to get that thing to work. I don't know anything about what it needs.
In my eyes, if Roger Maxon himself was able to approve of this, because there's no way this got past him, if he was able to approve using Ultracite even as a fuel source in power armor, then clearly he must approve using Ultracite to combat this atrocity.
Well, we can't use that as supporting argument because we don't know if Elder Maxon has approved this ultracite research or not. Because there hasn't been communications with First Expeditionary and the group in California.
Yes, but there was with Taggarty. Like I said, the plans came from Lost Hills.
Yeah, I actually trust Valdez on this. If she was willing to use an ultracite battery, I do believe that she was there for the power armor research on their side of things. I'm pretty sure that they had a different take on it. But again, I think that there is a world of difference between using it as an energy source and as a weapon.
Well, I'm kind of with Vasilio because a great defense is a great offense.
What?
So where are we at here? Because it sounds like you would want to maybe pursue this power armor.
I don't know what to do to fix it. I don't know how to get it to work.
Yeah, more I
I
think
know
about
nothing
it,
about power armor myself. I kind of lost in the woods about that.
he's right about the whole weapon thing. I mean, when you think about it, the same could be said about nuclear energy. Like, it's fine to use it in a power plant, but not in, like, a bomb.
Well, Temple,
that's-
you really haven't given us much about this ultracite weaponry that you got in mind. I mean, do you have any research or stats or statistics or anything like that?
Well, no. The only thing that I had proposed before it was shot down by Constance back then was that we would adopt it in the current weapons that we already use. Ideally, we could, if it's possible, try to manufacture handmade ammunition that's composed of ultracite, but then also reinforce our weapons, mainly receivers or barrels, anything like that, and have those components comprised of ultracite.
I have a question.
Shoot.
Gatling lasers require a fusion core, correct?
Yes.
which is a power source, correct?
Right.
Yes.
The same power source that our armor uses.
Yep.
So we're using nuclear power for the Gatling lasers, correct?
No. We're using electricity. There's a difference.
Generated by what?
Yeah. But there is a difference.
So that there is a difference because that would be the equivalent would have to be us using an ultracite power core. We're not inflicting we're not irradiating people with the Gatling laser. So not
No,
like
but he kind of understands the same thing. Like the same fuel source used to protect is also the same fuel source used to destroy.
Yeah, it's true. That is very true.
Yeah, the same fuel source can also be unstable at times and explode.
A fusion core is just a glorified battery, though.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Within the vault, I did read up on those, and they are nuclear batteries. They're not
Yeah.
just electrical. And regarding lasers, a laser with waveform of light is a form of radiation. So yeah.
It's an electrical
No,
storage medium. That's what it is.
Yep. And when I say irradiating people, the radiation that creates a light isn't the same as the radiation that tears apart your DNA. Like it's not.
Well, the lasers are, though. I mean, they might carry a visible spectrum, but they still burn our targets. That's what radiation does.
Yes, but it's not it's not directly from the nuclear power. That's that radiation's being formed by a different part of the weapon that has nothing to do with what's powering it. We could still form that if we used a different kind of battery that's not nuclear. You see what I mean?
So,
All
I
right,
have
all
a
right.
follow-up question. If we were to make an ultracite version of the fusion core, which say just did extended life for more continued use on a Gatling laser, is there issues with people doing that here?
That's the equivalent to what Valdez. She already has a ultracite power core, so I don't think there would be a problem with that, right?
No. But we don't even know what the benefits are for something the size of like a fusion core.
Either way,
Again, the fusion core doesn't produce power, it just stores it.
so it seems like we're closing a lot of doors, but not really opening a lot of them.
So
How
let's get
about-
into specifics. So, like talking generally as a weapon source. What about a specific weapon? Like maybe using the ultracite for our laser Gatlings and doing a test run or field run to see if it's
Well,
significant or anything.
I was going to suggest something similar. We do know that various groups, like the responders, were working with something to combat the Scorched. Maybe that thing was Ultracite. Maybe we should go after their research.
It was depleted ultracite. And they were
Oh,
putting
well.
it in bullets. Because it explodes when it comes into contact with ultracite.
I'm also against going to any allies' encampments and trying to steal their research. We can ask for it and see.
I mean, they're dead. The
Allies.
responders are dead.
Oh, I'm talking about Foundation, other groups.
Okay.
I don't want to mix
I
these
mean-
two things in the same place, personally. I don't want our own people exposed to this like that.
I feel as if the only reason why the responders fail in that regard was from the lack of military training then.
But they didn't have a lack of military training.
Weren't they just a bunch of glorified firefighters?
Yeah, but they had one of Taggarty's people there.
What's one to shit? Us.
I mean, we have car salesmen in our ranks, man.
Yeah, let's not
but-
get too cocky.
Yeah.
At least we're way more trained than what they were.
We don't know that.
Here's the thing, we're all human though, and we know that any system is, vulnerable to human error.
I just don't want to put gunpowder and a flame in the same place. I really don't.
I mean, we
Well-
can't fight the Scorched if we die trying, I guess. I'm kind of inclined to agree with Scribe Carlson at this point. Not.
I mean, we are pretty resourceful. Do we need to use Ultracite? I'm sure we could find another way, another weapon that
Safer
we can
way.
use.
We're
Yes, that is safe.
We're resourceful, but it's clearly not working. Scorch numbers aren't going down.
That's why we have to figure out something biological.
And
Well,
they did. It's the depleted ultracite.
No, that's
that's
not biological.
That's chemical involving the mineral. It has nothing to do with the Scorched. Well, we don't have concrete evidence about the link between the Scorched biology and the Ultracite, so we can't draw that conclusion yet. But the Scorched DNA. I mean, how long have we been looking at this DNA though? And we still haven't really found out anything.
It's not even us looking at it. It's a computer.
Didn't we all just agree just a bit earlier that the Scorch clearly have Ultracite infused in them?
They have
Wouldn't
it.
that indicate that Ultracite is at least going to affect them biologically?
But we don't know how.
Yeah.
Well, this
Why
is
we
my
need to
take
start?
on it. Like, you take a snake with its venom. All right, the snake bites you. You really can't make an anti-venom without the snake's venom. Same thing with Ultracite. Like, maybe the Ultracite has some sort of counter effect to it if we're able to manipulate it somehow.
Yeah, it does. It explodes. We know that.
Well, there might be more than just explosions. You know, these are initial test results that we have. Like, I think we should still continue researching into Ultracite.
That sounds dangerous. It sounds like a.
So what happens if we just make the one? Why can't
You
we
think-
just make one weapon and then test it? If it doesn't work, scrap it and move on.
That's not how it works, man. Once you make it, it's there forever. And then some people, after you die, come across your research notes and figure out that it's even a thing, and then they start making them.
Well, why don't we just get rid of the research notes?
Wait,
Well,
so
hold up. I hate to sound like people from the past, but it's there. You know, Pandora's box has been opened. It's only a matter of time until somebody like researches them themselves. We don't even know if there's other groups that are researching it right now. So
Right.
to be ahead of the curveball, like we should probably continue our research into Ultracite.
Well, as long as we do it safely though. Like the more like what we've established with the weapons, I now think that's not safe. I don't think we should rule out all types of Ultracite research. We shouldn't just like give up on using that as an avenue of understanding the Scorched. But weapons is probably not a good way to go about it at this point.
I think I agree.
Well, just to give you like a little bit more perspective on it, weaponry, like the term weapon, is just a delivery system. So if you find some sort of weakness with the Ultracite, you got to ask yourself, how are you going to deliver it? Are you going to deliver it through a projectile, or are you going to deliver it as a gas? Or
Can we not muddy up our
Who's to
definitions on a weapon system?
Yeah, who's to say that we have to physically deliver it onto the Scorched in any way? What I mean is if we can continue researching Ultracite to figure out how the Scorched tick, like how they work. And that could help with our, like, connect some of the dots with the DNA. I don't think we need to deliver it onto them if that's going to be dangerous to us.
He is right, though. It can be in many forms. It's not a singular form. We're not talking about just a gun or just a bomb. There's so many different ways that it could be delivered.
Yeah, Luis, what I mean is, let's say you found some way to manipulate that Scorched DNA, right? If you change the DNA of one single Scorch, that's not going to make a difference.
Oh, no.
You're going to need some sort of wide delivery system to affect all the other Scorch.
Yeah, but we're not talking about a single Scorch. We're not talking about changing the DNA of a Scorch. We're talking about finding a weakness in the DNA and then creating something like, I don't know, a cold that only affects them.
Yep.
Well, a virus can also be perceived as a weapon, though.
It is.
That is a biological weapon, but the difference is it only affects them. Using ultracite weapons, just firing them, like that's hurts us.
How do we know if the virus won't mutate and infect us, though? I mean, the Scorch were once humans, weren't they?
Well, we know how human
Exactly.
DNA works, so we need to find out what part of their DNA is different from us and test it on human cells.
Yeah,
What I'm
the glowing
saying,
parts.
you manipulate that DNA, you make yourself some sort of gas or something like that. Even if you push it out there to the Scorch, we already know it might affect the Scorch, but we don't know if it might have some sort of cascade, effect on the wildlife, us, other, organic material that's out there.
You're right, we don't
Well,
know,
that's
and that's why we're
that's
researching
true.
it.
Shouldn't we
But-
also research
so-
the weapons then, though? In that same
Yeah,
vein?
what I'm pointing out, that's risk. That's a high risk. It's the same
Well,
sort of level of risk if you were to do a weapon system.
no,
That's an unknown risk. We don't know if that's going to happen. We do know that if we use ultracite guns, they have a probability of blowing up on us.
Question.
Well, I mean,
that's the
normal
same
guns
for
have a
virus,
probability of blowing up on us. By that
How do you
logic.
know we
Yeah.
have a probability of them blowing up on us if we never made a test or tested it out in the field on a weapon system?
I don't think it would be possible to use like
What?
to determine what we encounter like in nature. Like if we find depleted ultracite and we shoot near it with our weapon, that's not like there's nothing we can do about that. Whereas when Vasile is talking about normal weapons, that can be avoided by maintaining it. That's pretty much in our hands. What we encounter with the Scorched isn't.
yeah, for all we know,
I mean-
those damn freaking petrified Scorch that we see are depleted ultracite, and every time they bust apart and all those particles go floating through the air, that nice ultracite receiver that we just put together for research goes kaboom right in our hands.
That's terrifying. Don't
Well, actually, no. We do know that they're not.
How?
How did we
But
know
I-
that?
Because we've seen group of Scorched hiding among them all the time.
How do we know the Scorched don't have depleted ultracite in them as well, and so that's why it's not reacting?
Yeah, the ones that seem to be standing still
I-
seem to be losing steam in a lot of different ways. And I'm even speculating that they're gaining power from the ultracite. I don't know. I'm just saying there's all these possibilities and we don't know.
I have a question. One of the big concerns about using it as a weapon is we're quite certain that it would be at least unstable and unsafe as it currently stands for us to be able to handle, correct?
I think the
Like if we were to put
biggest concern
Sorry, go
is
ahead.
that we don't know how long it takes, or even what causes depleted ultracite. We don't know what causes ultracite depletion. It's not something we have
Okay.
experience with. We also know that when depleted ultracite and ultracite come together, it's bad.
Alright, so then my other point to that question is when we first invent something, when the human species first invents something, it normally is very rough, crude, very hazardous to the users, but slowly over time as we deal more with it, as we research more with it, it becomes safer and safer to handle. Newer, more refined ways of figuring it out. Maybe we can even find a way to refine ultracite in a product
I,
that is not actually going to explode when in contact with depleted.
I would say that was largely true before the bombs dropped, and now we're in a completely different scenario. What you're talking about could take thousands of years, whereas it may have taken a couple of weeks pre-war.
Well, how do we know a virus isn't going to do the same thing if we're not able to even make a weapon safe? How can we trust ourselves to handle a biological weapon that's meant to spread from host to host? That seems like we'd be screwing our race into extinction.
If it affects us, but we're not looking for something that affects us. We're looking specifically for weaknesses in the Scorched DNA, and that is directly from Lost Hills. That was what they wanted. This is from the elders.
I just don't think that we're at the point where we can root out that ultracite can't be used.
Well, we know it can be used, but the question is how far and how.
Right, and isn't that the sole purpose of research and development? Like you research, you find a cause, you find an issue, and you develop that issue to where it's no longer an issue.
The purpose of research and development is to solve a problem.
Exactly.
I would say we have a pretty big problem.
Right, and we're doing research and development to fix that problem, but we're not doing it at a level that would be beneficial to us in a now sense. We don't have the resources to do it like we could have before. We don't have an army of scientists. And even the scientists we do have, we can't talk to right now.
Well, the person that we have heading this research and development for ultracite weaponry is Temple. So, I mean, if he's willing to continue practice, then I would just say let him continue on a safe.
It's not just me, Sharp.
Yeah, this doesn't come down to one person. This is about the very soul of what we are. You're thinking like they did pre-war, man. Look at the world around us and look at what's left. That's what that unrestricted research and development and complete disregard for the potential effects of the product on the people around them. That's what we're dealing with now. We're living it. They're not. They're dead.
Well, can the same be said about like the power armor that we use, the laser gatlings that we use, the miniguns, the explosives? All that's destructive, but we still use it.
So, why don't you tell me how you feel about nuclear weapons?
I don't think nuclear weapons should be used. Absolutely not. No.
All right. Well, we're talking about something that is powers and powers above what you use as a tool on a daily basis out there in the field. That's what you're talking about putting in our hands.
Not the same as a nuclear weapon, though.
It's
because
pretty
this is something
damn
that we can
close.
harness at a. Okay, so an infantry guy goes out walking around with a nuke on strapped to his back, and he goes kill the enemy with it. It's not just going to kill him or the enemy; it's going to kill everybody. That's not the same as like a laser gatling or a rifle or a power armor. It's used by the individual.
And we have nuclear weapons that can be used by the individual.
I think what he's getting at here is that a nuke poisons the ground. Radiation lasts for a very long time, as we all know. Do we know if shooting an ultracite round into the ground poisons that ground for 25, 75, 150 years?
Well, it's definitely radioactive.
Yeah, ultracite in itself is highly radioactive.
But that's part of the development team has to figure out is getting rid of the harmful effects of ultracite, if it can be done.
It by its very nature, it's radioactive, so it will never. I mean, we can't make it not radioactive.
Why can't we?
If you make it not radioactive, it's going to be a completely different element.
Yeah, and,
It's not gonna be
You're effectively
ultracite.
rendering it inert.
yeah, and you
Some would
exactly.
call it depleted.
No,
okay.
that's not how that works.
I don't think that, yeah, I was going to say. But maybe if we can find a way to make it inert en masse, we can find a way to make the ultracite in the scorched inert en masse, and that might cause them all to just stop.
So I am actually very much for a research line into making ultracite inert in this manner that we are speaking of. I don't think it's probable, but I think that would be worth looking into.
I
would
mean,
love to help with that.
if we could do that, that would kind of avoid a potential arms race when every other group finds and learns how to make ultracite weapons and they think they want to make them. Rendering it inert would probably be the best route to go.
Yeah, I agree with that, even though it's probably not. Well, we don't know if it's doable, but that seems pretty improbable.
I mean, we don't know if ultracite weapons is doable, but I think we should focus our efforts on seeing if we can render it inert rather than making ultracite weapons.
I don't even think we have to talk about it being inert, though. I mean, you already talked about how it's been used as a battery source, right? I mean, did they not take out the radiation with using some sort of protective coating on that battery?
You can't take out the radiation. You can put a protective coating to make sure to keep it in, but
Or as much as
as
you
much
can.
as you can, yeah, to a lower level.
So if they have it in a battery already where it's not producing any harmful radiation to the person in a power suit, then how can it be any different to using it into a weapon?
Well, first off, that battery, we don't know the long-term effects, how long it'll last in its protective casing, stuff like that. We could go on for
Yeah.
days about that.
Yeah,
If you put protective casing on a bullet and then shoot it, that doesn't fucking matter. It's
And
gonna
besides, protective casings, when it comes to radiation, does wear out over time.
your suit's powered.
Yeah,
I'm
it
sure a
does.
fusion core is not the same as a bullet. It doesn't shoot its top off when you hit the back of it.
Well, hold up, man.
Well, we didn't even say how we're gonna use the implement the ultrasight into a weapon, so you can't assume the way that we're gonna do it is gonna allow for a protective casing to be put on.
Yeah, plus, your suit isn't actually powered by a fission source; it's a fusion source. If that fusion pack was damaged in any way, it would just cease to function. It wouldn't continually
Still-
spew radiation.
The cores are still built using radioactive material, though. That's how the battery generates its electricity.
No, it's charged from an external source.
Fusion
They
cores?
hold power.
Yeah,
They don't produce it.
Yeah, but like a battery, it still relies on a chemical reaction.
yeah, and that's true. But we're not
Yeah.
talking about
And-
insanely large amounts of radioactive material.
Well, couldn't that possibly apply to ultracite?
Yeah, regardless of the implications, yeah, we've already talked about how it's being used as a battery source.
yeah, and we can
in
do
a fusion
that.
in the form of a fusion core. The fusion core can simply be placed into a laser gatling, and we can see what sort of effects we get from it.
Yeah, you'd get a powered laser gatling. You're not going to get anything special. What we're talking about is something far different. We're talking about changing out lenses or internal components with ultracite materials that are, I don't know, assumed to amplify the beam, I guess.
Well, would it not be wise to start off small with something that we know that possibly will work compared to what we don't know what will work?
I think, personally, it's unwise to start down this road at all. I'm not even sure it's in line with the Brotherhood's beliefs.
We shouldn't be about manufacturing weapons in the Brotherhood. We should be about preserving ourselves and what's left of humanity. We should try to divert our research and our time to research to seeing if we can make ultracite inert rather than making weapons.
I think we should, though, find new solutions to problems that we faced throughout the ages, but I don't think this is it.
But I don't think, yeah, I agree. I don't think in good conscience we should be using ultracite for it.
I agree.
Zimmerman, you got any opinions?
I just think the risks are too great, not just as far as the potential for future havoc with other people manufacturing these weapons and using them ill, but I think the process of creating the weapons or the ammunition or the modifications, it's too risky.
I think we need to know more. A lot more.
Well, we're not going to know unless we do research and development.
I don't think anybody here is saying that we should not touch this period full stop, never look at it again, pretend it doesn't exist, head in the sand. I think
No.
you have one group that's arguing we should definitely not put this into weapons, at least for right now, and there's another group saying absolutely never we should do it.
I'm
Correct?
still tossed up on the ethics of it, man. I am not convinced that. I don't think our needs justify this course of action at this point, especially when we have other courses of action that we're actually striving for right now.
Look, I'm a soldier, so if I see something that can potentially be used for the Brotherhood of Steel effectively and will give us an up against our enemies, then I'm all for it. But at the same time, we have to be safe about it. I'm not saying not to take safety precautions or to start off slow. I want us to start off slow. I want us to take small steps. And if we can use it to our advantage, then we should.
Right, but even to utilize these weapons that you're talking about, we still have to put our people in harm's way. Whereas the course of action that we're currently seeking, once we have the information that we have, it could deliver a death blow without even putting a single one of us in harm's way.
He's right.
That's still a weapon, though, in
Yeah,
my mind.
it is a weapon.
If you're looking at that perspective.
It absolutely is a weapon. We're looking for the most effective weapon that we can possibly find. But this weapon in particular is one that we're looking at, that they will come down and swoop from the sky and pick up that baited meat that we left for them and then fly off with it, and that's it. No Operation Touchdown 2. Nothing like that.
Operate Touchdown was trying to destroy the Hive, not just make ultracite weaponry.
Yeah, and it made it worse. It actually caused the spread of the scorch throughout Appalachia. And now we have a reality where we have to look at the use of actual force on that level as a potential problem. It made an extinction level event worse.
Not by using ultracite.
And it's not what they intended.
It's not.
It's not like they knew that was going to happen.
No, but now we do know, right? And all ultracite is, like, you can make an ultracite bomb, but it's going to be, probably 100 times more powerful than TNT of the same size. But all that's going to do is make it even worse.
And I'm not talking about making an ultracite bomb.
Yeah, I'm just saying, man, that like the direct approach didn't work. Despite the sacrifice of Taggarty and all of her people.
We don't know what Taggarty did with ultracite. All the corps I came across had normal weapons. They didn't have any ultracite improved weapons.
Right, and I'm not saying that they did, but what I'm saying is that they took a direct approach. They were thinking in a very tactically smart manner, but it didn't work. We got to think differently.
Well,
I
there's
agree.
also a lot of other things that contributed to Taggarty's group falling, not just their direct approach. They also were very undermanned.
Right, but the unexpected variable was that the Scorch didn't get trapped or die off. They literally spread everywhere. We're still measuring the end result of that. Every time we go to a fissure site to measure how long it is or how big it is, we're trying to figure out what exactly the results of touchdown were.
And while we're sitting here tallying the results, more people are dying every day.
And here's the thing. They didn't cause that effect because they were using ultracite. They caused that effect because they were trying to destroy it in a means that wasn't successful.
Right.
And who's to say ultracite won't amplify that when we try?
That's what I'm saying. Ultracite is the amplifier.
But we can make restrictions on ultracite weaponry research, like not developing a bomb for one of them.
Yeah, for ourselves, but who's to say other groups won't restrict themselves? Who's to say
Well, that
someone else
opens
in our
up a-
chapter won't decide to go rogue and decide they think they know what's best and go off the rails with this research?
It could
how
be
do you-
anybody outside the group. It might not even be somebody in our group.
Yeah, how
Well,
do
that's
we
what I'm
know
saying.
someone isn't already working on building an ultracite weapon? If it's everywhere, it's bound to, pique someone's interest.
Yeah, the ultracite is there. The only way it's going to disappear is if we find some way to inert all of it. But we're not going to find out a way to inert all of it unless we do some sort of research into it.
And we should be researching ultracite. We should.
So we're agreed on the morality of researching into ultracite. We are considering the morality of researching into ultracite specifically for weaponry, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But on a direct approach with the weaponry. So
Okay.
you're not wanting to do laser gatling or some sort of projectile weaponry. You're wanting to do some sort of biochemical bomb against the Scorch.
I mean, so far our experiments have shown that fire is the most effective weapon that we have against the Scorch beasts. Why aren't we researching that instead?
Is there really?
But-
I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's a valid statement or not because
It
Taggart
is.
went down there and they blew up a bomb, and that creates a lot of fire. But that had an opposite effect what they want.
Well, that's putting way too many variables into the equation. We can't just you can't say, "Oh, fire didn't work because of what happened
Yeah.
that was most likely caused by the other parts of the bomb, like the
Yeah, take it from me, Sharp. When you throw a grenade, does it cause a fire?
Yeah, we're not here to talk about like fire being effective against ultracite. We're talking about if ultracite could be used to be against the scorch.
Are you not convinced by now? I mean, dude, I came into here having a similar opinion to you, but I don't see how you're not convinced how dangerous it is with all the information that's been presented.
To
Everything we do is dangerous. Being here in Appalachia is dangerous. Sitting here at this table is dangerous. I don't look at danger as a way to prevent me from looking into something that could be used effectively in an
Well,
advance.
then don't think
war.
about danger. Think about the mission. If we die doing this, doing something that we know is like we have confirmation that it poses a significant threat to us, how is that going to help the Brotherhood by losing some of its like hardworking people over something that we know was dangerous? If we can avoid danger, we should. The reason we engage in danger so much is because we can't avoid it, right? But shouldn't we when we can?
You're making this too simple of a conversation what it needs to be. Like, I'm not talking for all of the Brotherhood of Steel to go out and mine this ultracite. I'm talking about simply using it for a small, specific, effective way. And the only way we can do that is if we do research and development.
While we're sitting here contemplating our many avenues, like I said, people are dying. And I don't know about you, but these scorched have taken a lot from me, from everyone, from practically everyone here at this table. I think personally what we're doing is too slow. We need to find a faster approach. Not saying we, make ultracite bombs or anything, but we definitely need to find something sooner rather than later.
I don't think we should be doing ultracite weaponry right now. At that same line of thought, though, I don't think we should hamstring ourselves by declaring that we will never ever look into this ever again because it's too dangerous at this immediate moment.
Speaking of research, I think we have some of the scribes getting together pretty soon. We probably should be getting ready for that.
So, I suppose we put this on hiatus for now, then?
No decision tonight?
I think we have a pretty good thought of how this should be dealt with right now.
Well, maybe you do.
I personally, in good conscience, can't make ultracite weaponry. I mean, I had this discussion with Scribe Constance a while back, and I did promise her I wouldn't get involved with manufacturing those weapons.
Well, you can't just go based on a promise. I mean, if anything, stick to it because of the evidence. Can't let emotions get into this conversation. No offense.
So let me ask you, Temple. If Elder Maxon himself radioed us and told us that making weapons out of ultracite was the best way possible, will you not do it?
Oh, we're getting into a different conversation here, aren't we? Orders are orders at that moment.
Yeah, I just don't think that we should close the door completely.
Not at all.
I'm not saying that either. We definitely need a little bit more, I guess,
We need to
insight
establish
on it.
communication, and we need to find an immediate solution to the scorch problem.
Look, if the scribes say they can't do it, then I'll back them up on it. But if there's some sort of information that comes available where we could potentially use this as a safe means to fight the scorch, then we should use it.
I'm in agreement with that statement. We should not do it now. Well, it's too dangerous, but we should not hamstring ourselves by saying never.
I suppose that's fair.
I think that's where
It
it's at.
is.
Does anybody else got
Alright.
anything to say? I think everything has been said. It needs to be said.
I'm done.
All right. Good meeting.